Hello and welcome back to Starting Point, and we are truly glad to still be with you here today. We are going to have a wonderful conversation with two diasporas who are living abroad because, as you said before, Sasko, that this is the 11th day of Ramadan, and as Indonesia has some of, lots of populations around the world, we also would like to know their perspectives on how Ramadan is going in their respective countries.
We'll talk with Nafasha Ramadini Maura, who is now in New York, United States, and Puan Nazira Maharani, who is in Kedah, Malaysia. Hello, good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Maura and Puan.
Hello, good morning.
First of all, before we talk a lot more, I would like to know about both of you, about your background. Let's start with Maura. What are you doing there? What's your background? What is like?
Okay, thank you very much, first of all, for having me. So my name is again Maura, and currently I'm taking my master's degree at New York University. So I am taking a major in public relations and corporate communications. And this is my second semester here.
Okay, thank you, Maura. And Puan, could you please explain us your background?
Sure. Hello. Good morning. Well, my name is Puan Nazira Maharani. You can call me Puan. I am from Depok, West Java, and currently I am pursuing my bachelor's degree here in Alor-Setat, Kedah, Malaysia, with social development as my major. Thank you for having me.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us here on this beautiful day. And can you tell us a bit more? Is this your first time fasting abroad, away from home in Indonesia? Because, you know, you both are far away from Indonesia. Oh, we can start from Maura first.
Yeah, it's actually my first time living abroad for a long period of time, and also my very first time being away from home during Ramadan. Previously, like every year, so I live in Depok and I spent Ramadan with my family, with my parents and my siblings. So this is something that is very new to me.
Wow. And Puan, you also share the same way of this is also your first time?
So actually, I came to Malaysia in 2022 after the Eid al-Fitri. So this is actually my second Ramadan. So I'm not really, I'm really like familiar with the vibes and the atmosphere here, because it's not quite different from Indonesia actually.
If I'm not mistaken, Maura and Puan, both of you are from Depok, West Java?
Yes,
Yeah.
Are you guys neighbors somehow?
Anyway,
I don't think so.
So it's good to meet
each other now.
we just meet on air. It's good for both of you. And before we talk more, I would like to know the duration of fasting. How long is it for Maura and Puan? How long is the fasting duration? Maura first, maybe.
New York is not much of a difference compared to in Jakarta and also in Indonesia. So the fasting starts at around 5:45 a.m. and then it ends at around 7 p.m. So it's not that long in terms of duration of the fasting itself.
I see. And is it also the same for Puan in your experience?
So actually, if we're counting from the Subuh prayer to the Maghrib prayer, so the Subuh is actually like on 6:15 in the morning, and then we have the Iftar on 7:30. So the Maghrib is around that time, 7:30 p.m. And if we're counting that time, the duration is approximately like 13 and a half hours. So actually, maybe that's a little bit more than Indonesia, I think, for the duration.
Okay, so the hours are not that different between here in Jakarta, Indonesia. So what I want to know is, have you done all the fasting, this like 11 days? Or maybe because of an hour longer there, you didn't done the fasting well?
So for me, Alhamdulillah, I performed the Ramadan, the fasting, these 11 days. I'm trying my best to perform the end of the month. But yeah, I'm trying my best to perform the Ramadan, the fasting itself, as best as I can.
How about you, Mora?
For me, it's also not that much of a challenge because the time difference is not that significant compared to Indonesia. So I'm trying my best also to perform my fasting here.
Okay, now I really want to know how is the actual fasting there because we know that in Indonesia there's usually, Sasko, a really big community here and, families usually here, as you both ladies have said before. So what is it like to fast and experience Ramadan in another country? We can start with you first, Puan.
Okay, so experiencing the Ramadan month in another country, especially in here in Malaysia, I don't think that's big differences between Indonesia and here in Malaysia. I think the atmosphere, the ambience, the hawkers that selling food for iftar, it's pretty much the same actually, but there's maybe like a couple of things that may be a little bit different. For example, the tarawih for the raka'ah for tarawih that we're performing here is maybe like in Indonesia, maybe the tarawih is like 11 with the witir, right? So, but here we perform it like 23 raka'ah. So it's maybe quite different in terms of the tarawih prayer. But any other that, I don't think that is much differences between here in Malaysia and Indonesia. But I want to highlight that what is most differences is, or like the biggest challenge to find in the Ramadan here is the food. Actually, I think Maura is also feel the same, that the food cannot compare. Indonesian food, especially for iftar, cannot compare to any other countries, I bet. So that is the most challenging for me, the food.
Before we go to Mora, I want to ask Puan again. Puan, have you heard the term more in Malaysia? Can you explain us?
Yeah. So
what's that?
actually here, I've heard a lot of slangs here, and here the demonym for the Kedah people is Kedahan, right? When we heard about the Malaysian word, it's actually they're not saying in as what we heard like in the television or like in Upin Ipin, for example. It's actually they're speaking in their own accent, and their accent is so different comparing to the Upin Ipin that we heard all of my lifetime. So when I came here, people said like more or something like that, but not in like more. They say something else with their own accent. So at first I couldn't understand that they say that word because they're saying it so differently with their accent. It's very thick, I might say, and it's like a little bit mixed with the it's like and the pedalist because we are the neighboring state. So yeah, like that.
Wow.
So how about Mora? How do you find fasting in New York?
Actually very different compared to what I experienced in Indonesia and also compared to Puan's experience in Malaysia. In here, it's not that easy to find like street foods and then stalls that usually it's easy to get in Indonesia. In here, it's mostly me cooking or me eating out more of it. So, but I am blessed that here in New York, I have this community. The first one is called New York University Islamic Center. So the NYU Islamic Center often held a free iftar and then continued by Maghrib, Isha, and also Tarawih prayer. So that is a very large Muslim community at the campus, and also other students from other universities also often came to NYU Islamic Center. And then another thing to know that I am blessed that I have an Indonesian community at NYU, and we are actually very close to each other. And actually, around this time last week, we also had an iftar, and then we were served many Indonesian cuisine such as rendang, telur balado, ayam goreng, and it feels like home. And we are also able to speak in Indonesian, and that is a very nice touch to it.
Oh, that's really lovely because community is really important, and especially having iftar together,
Yeah.
it really builds up that feeling of home as well. And you said I'm quite curious because you said that you had the opportunity to eat some Indonesian food in these communities. But in general, do you usually cook Indonesian food for sahur and iftar, or more typical American foods in New York?
Oh, it actually depends on what it is that I'm craving at the moment. So most of the time I cook, and what I'm cooking is mostly Indonesian food. But other times, like whenever I look for something that's easy to get, it's gonna be like chicken over rice that is sold on the stalls, either around the park or on the way. There's actually a lot of chicken over rice stalls in here. But other than that, probably burgers and also pizzas. That's very easy to get.
And
So it actually really depends on the day.
and I would like to ask, are you two good cook back here in Indonesia, or both of you became a cook when
Oh,
you
yes.
are abroad?
That's a great question.
Maybe from Puan.
All right. So one thing that is very interesting here of the Indonesian student here residing in any other country, especially here in my university, Abu Bakar International University, all the Indonesian are good cookers. They are a pro chef. I mean, like they became a good chef because if we're talking about the food and comparing to Malaysian food and any other country's food, I think the spices, the tastiness is like our food, our cuisine is on a whole different level. So I think when we came here, we suddenly became a very pro chef, and a lot of my friends selling Indonesian food for iftar, for example, like cilok, cimol, any kind of seblak that we couldn't find here anywhere. So we are became a very pro and like a professional chef here.
Is it this is the wrong time talking about food, but but it's good information.
Yes.
But I a bit regret my question, but it's a good information.
Good to know, though.
Good to
Yes,
know, yeah. And how about you, Mora?
Actually, I like cooking back in Indonesia, and then but when I came here, like it is very hard to find Indonesian food. Well, there's actually some restaurants who sell Indonesian foods. However, again, just like Puan said, it doesn't compare to what Indonesian food tastes actually like. So what we did is actually like we craft and we find the best recipes, and then actually trying and experimenting with all the recipes and then making it our own. And then I bet like all of my friends here are starting to be a good chef here.
I see. And it's sometimes they have this term, I forgot the exact word, but it's like you do things when you're kepepet. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
when
yeah. When
when necessity-wise.
necessity-wise, that's right.
It's like, yeah, you become a really good chef
Of
when
course.
you need to be one. Ladies, I'm curious, especially in different countries and two different countries, what are some of the challenges that people usually don't know about experiencing Ramadan there? Would it be, being away from family or language barrier, for Puan, like, they mostly speak Melayu, and in New York, it's mostly English. Like, and how do you deal with those challenges? And we can start with Maura first.
The fasting itself is not a challenge, but what's more challenging for me and become a bit of concern is the prayer time, because we just had the daylight saving and then the time for prayer and also and sunlight and also sunsets is actually changing. And so the time for iftar is also changing. So I actually usually have classes from 3 p.m. until 9 p.m. And then my break is around 6:30, whereas the iftar is at 7. So what I did is I actually have to break my fast in class. And I feel like it is very challenging because, like I cannot bring foods that I really want to eat. So most of the time I look for something that is easy to bring. Again, like bread or snacks. And probably that is something that me and my friends is experiencing here. But one thing to note that it's not the professor that is not accommodating. The professor is actually have very high tolerance for religious activities, but it's just me who is looking for practicality here.
And I think it's also the adjustment,
Yeah.
that possibly takes a while. And what about you, Puan? Do you also share the same challenges?
Well, as I mentioned before, like the challenges here, actually, it's not about the how we perform the fasting itself, and it's not about the how we perform the month of this blessed Ramadan month, because as we know, Indonesia and Malaysia, we kind of share the same perspective about Islam itself, and we are majority. Actually, my state is actually a Muslim state, so the population mostly are Muslim. So I don't think there is much differences in terms of the feels or the ambience or like the atmosphere. It's pretty much the same. At least for me, I feel the challenges is it's that food. Yeah, it's I'm pretty much craving for lontong actually right now. If I think my mom is watching right now, so I really I say to her like I'm craving for lontong for really long time because I'm not I came back to Indonesia for this year. So I feel like the food itself made us, not only me, I think like most of the Indonesian students here are very missing home lately because we, food itself is the most important thing if we are breaking our fast for iftar, right? So here maybe we can only taste something that is similar, but it's not covering our cravingness in terms of like as I said before, as I mentioned before, we're really craving for lontong, seblak, cilok, and the another peracian in Indonesia. We couldn't find here anywhere.
Okay, one last question. I would like to know because we know that Puan is a bit similar with us in Jakarta, Indonesia. She's in Malaysia and Southeast Asia, and but Maura is in the West. How do you guys perform the Tarawih prayers? From Maura first.
Like I've said before, in here it's actually we have the community, the NYU Islamic Center, where there we also aside from iftar, we also have Tarawih prayer there, and then other than that, because I live in Queens and there's a lot of Muslim in Queens and also Indonesian, so there's actually this Indonesian mosque called Al Hikmah. Honestly, I haven't gone there yet, but I've heard so many good things about Al Hikmah. So there they provide Indonesian street foods and then also desserts for iftar. And then also at the end, they also conduct Tarawih prayer there.
How far is it from your place, the mosque?
I would say it's around 30 minutes with bus.
Okay, it's quite short. How about you, Puan?
Yeah.
So in my case, my university have one big mosque. So this big mosque is not only accessible for the students because it's a big mosque. So it's actually being the landmark of this city actually for in Al Wasata. The name of the masjid is Masjid Al Bukhari. So because of this big masjid, it became the attractions to another people from. So when we are performing the Tarawih and maybe for the Idul Fitri later on, the people there is not only for the students, but we often found someone that is coming from Perlis or Perak or Kelantan or Penang maybe because it became the landmark lately. So in the performing Tarawih, as I mentioned before, maybe in Indonesia performing like 8 raka'ah plus 3 for the witir, but here in Malaysia and especially in my city, Alor Setar, Kedah, Malaysia, we're performing 20 plus 3, so the total is 23. It's quite a big difference. When I came here in Malaysia, I feel like very tired after performing the Tarawih actually because it's a very difference between the Raka'ah in Indonesia and in Malaysia actually, to be honest.
Well, it's been super lovely discovering these new things about how Ramadan is in other countries, differences in foods, prayers, and we do hope that you both wonderful ladies have a really smooth and a great Ramadan full of many blessings. Thank you so much for joining us again, Nafasha Ramadini Maura and Puan Nazira Maharani. It's been a joy and pleasure talking with you both. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
And we have still a lot of news after the break, so stay with us.